Whether I'm bowling on the Pro Tour, Team USA, or in my local league, lane play is often the key to success for me. While I'd like to throw my best shot every time, the reality is, it just doesn't happen. But by using lane play and making the right adjustments, I make those mistakes turning the strikes there as well. We've all seen the person that just can't miss. By learning how to find your break point, making your adjustments, when, how, and where to do them, you too can be that person that everyone in your league says, wow, just can't miss. Most bowlers know about the arrows, but knowing how to determine your break point and how to adjust that break point is the key to creating more room on the lane. In this section, we're going to discuss how to do these things so that you too can create your most possible miss room.
As Team USA coaches, we get asked quite often, how do we help get our players lined up? We travel to all over the world. We have different types of patterns that they're always competing on, and you don't get a lot of practice time. So are there any secrets that we can share?
Well, we commonly use this rule of 31. Helps us decide where we want to play on the lane. So we subtract the pattern distance, 31 from that distance, and that gives us our desired break point.
So that's the distance down the lane that where we want the ball towards the end of the pattern, and we just got to figure the attack angle we want to get to that point.
Right, and that angle is going to be dependent on how you throw the ball. It's a personal number. If you're a high rev rated player, then your feet are going to be further left and you're going to hook to that spot. If you're high ball speed and a little bit straighter, then you're going to get a little direct line to the pocket.
So even to the lane surface, whether it's in synthetic or wood, is going to make us play a little different too, right?
Right. Wood lanes are going to hook much, much more. Certain synthetics are going to play a little bit longer, so they'll seem a little oilier than the pattern is probably designed to play. So you really want to know your playing field.
So that rule of 31, if we're like a house pattern is 40 feet long. So you subtract 31, what do we end up getting?
We end up right around that second arrow. A little bit, it could be one board this way, one board that way.
Depending if it's wood or synthetic, and there's different brands of synthetic too, it's going to be plus or minus. But that gives us a very good starting point, so we can have very good practice sessions. We're not kind of guessing where we're looking. This is where we want to be looking at.
Right. We don't have very long, so you want to make sure that you practice wisely. Make sure that you don't need to explore the entire lane when we know that information up front.
And that's how it starts, but the lane's going to change as we start bowling. Isn't that correct? We got to be ahead of the moves, really.
Right, and that's what the better players do. They stay in front of the moves, and they're watching their ball transition down the lane. They start to recognize when it picks up a little bit too soon, starts to hook too early. They start heading a little further left if they're a right-handed player, where there's a higher volume of oil, going to give them a little bit more hold, sort of push through the front, won't read quite as quickly.
So yeah, think of it as just like downhill snow skiers, and they're going down a solemn course, and you have all this nice fresh powder, and the first skier goes down, and they start cutting a path. Eventually, as they start having more racers go down, you have a predefined path. Pretty soon you got to get out of that path.
Right, the friction, all the balls going down the lane, those new balls, they're so aggressive, they start to pick up some of that oil, and so it starts to dissipate. Get more and more burn. You want to make sure you get out of that area so you get a smoother surface to play on.
Okay, so the keys here, we want to subtract 31 from the oil pattern. Kind of pay attention to the lane surface that you're bowling on, whether it's a high friction or a low friction, and be aware of those changes, watching your ball motion front to back.
So the break point is the first thing that you want to determine when you're attacking a pattern, whether a house pattern or a tournament pattern. The way we describe break point is when the ball, for a right-hander, has reached its furthest point right on the lane and then makes its turn back towards the pocket.
So it's a distance that is the farthest away or closest to the channel on your side of the bowling. So as you can see on these two charts here, our break point is going to be right here on the bowlers on the top part, and our break point is going to be right here for our bowlers down on the bottom part of the screen. The point is the farthest away from the pocket when it's going to be turning and going back to the pocket.
Now we have shot tracking. This is two different players playing the same break point. You can see up here we have Ametria. She's going a little bit more direct through the front part of the lane, so her launch angle is a little bit straighter. And then down here we have Jean-Marc, who has opened up the lane. He's got a higher rev rate, so his feet are further left, and he's circling to the exact same break point.
So we were talking about the rule of 31 down here. So we had a 40-foot pattern. So as you can see down here in Jean-Marc, he's about 9 board down here, about 39, 40 feet. Ametria down here, she's about 8 board in the same type of area. It's where the ball's starting to come back to the pocket, but they completely different through the front part of the lane. You have one of them playing 12 the arrows, the other one was playing 9 at the arrow. So they're playing the lane similar, but depending on their style of play, they're playing down here. The break point is the same, but they'll play the front part different because of their speed, their RPM, their rev rate, and the type of ball they're using.
So now you've thrown a few shots, you've determined where the hook is on the lane and your break point. But where do you start? Now, when I'm talking about where you start, I'm talking about with your feet. If you're a straighter player, you're probably going to be closer to the gutter and playing a little bit straighter. And as you have more revolutions or slower ball speed, you may move in a little bit and move your break point and your starting position a little further away from the gutter. Here we'll see some examples of some different types of players, and you can see which players you match up best with.
Here we have John Mark. He's like a lot of bowlers that you'll see in Lake. He's high speed, higher on the rev plate and everything. But he's kind of playing the lanes too direct through the front, and he's having a hard time getting it to the right side of the head pin. How can he apply that break point rule of 31?
Well, we have a 40-foot pattern, so we want our break point to be right around 9 or 10. And with John Mark's rev rate and speed, his launch angle is, like you said, far too direct. So we would get his feet a little bit further left, maybe move his eyes, maybe a 2 and 1 left, 2 with your feet, 1 with your eyes. That'll get you a steeper angle through the front, but get you to the same break point down lane.
So, you know, it looked like you were trying to play like second arrow through the front part of the lane. We really want to, if you want to think of second arrow down the lane. So we probably need you to move quite a bit left, like I'm saying, get it out to that point so we can get the ball to come back to the button. Let's go ahead and give that a try.
Okay.
Okay, and again, now just eyes, your feet look like they're in a good spot. Just don't have our eyes far enough right. You're not getting it out to that spot that we're looking down the lane. So just kind of keep your feet in the same place. Let's move our eyes a little bit right and try one more shot.
Okay.
So now we can see in John Mark in 3 shots, you got warmed up. Now we got a good attack angle to the pocket. You've got a good place to start. You have a good break point down the lane, and you're nice and flush. Now remember, the lanes are going to change, but you still want to kind of keep that same point down the lane, and you're just going to be moving your angles through the front as the lanes transition.
Okay.
Okay, now we have Steven, and Steven is a player that's kind of a medium to a firmer speed. Still has that good hand RPMs, but a little more side rotation. It's going to have a little bit more hook on the ball. But again, he's playing way outside.
Right, and again, with the distance that we have of the pattern, we want it, I think with your speed and your rotation, you're going to want to have much more angle again through the front, get to that same break point. I think that'll help you get a little bit lined up a little bit sooner.
It's, I mean, players will see this quite often. They like to see that ball hook. But your room for error is not going to be there. You're going to have splits, you're going to have washout stuff, because you're going to have to be so precise of where you're playing. Making the simple move of coming into that break point where we're looking down the lane 9 board and stuff, changing our angles through the front a little bit, you're going to have more room for error, your scores are going to increase. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Now on that one there, it looked like the angle just got a little too far out again trying to, so probably just pull our eyes in just a little bit more, because it looked like, how far did it look like you got out to?
It was easily out around the first arrow, too far with my angle.
Too far, so yeah, so your feet look pretty good. Let's just pull your eyes in about 2 or 3 boards and let's give that a shot.
Okay.
Excellent, in 3 shots?
Yeah, I think possibly, and I'll ask you, Stephen, on the shot before, did you move your feet only?
Yeah, just my feet, yeah.
Your feet only, and oftentimes we see that with league bowlers as they move their feet only, which is a really aggressive move, and it moves their break point an equal amount down lane. So we want to make sure, if we're trying to control that break point, that we move our eyes along with our feet.
Great.
That was a great shot. Okay, now we have a bowler with very firm speed, kind of a lot of side rotation, but really playing the lanes direct. How can we apply that rule of 31?
Well, 40-foot pattern, we want your break point right around second arrow, 9 or 10 down lane. So, and what we could see from that reaction is that your break point was far too far to the left. So we've got to figure out a way, making moves on the lane to get your break point in the right area.
And we don't want to just move your feet and your eyes, everything right. It looks like your feet are probably pretty close. We just want to take your eyes right, where you're looking at the arrows, and the eyes right a little bit so we can get the ball a little farther, just right down the lane. That was really close on shot 2. Where do you think she can move from there, Coach?
You know, I would maybe get your feet, maybe like a 1 and 1 right. 1 with your feet, 1 with your eyes to the right, and let's see how that reacts. Good, now that one little bit move, it ended up coming up a little bit high, so we're really close to her eyes, so probably just want to fudge a little bit with your feet back to the left, and we're going to be in a great spot. And which is great. In 4 shots now we got you lined up. You're going to have room for air. You're going to carry the high hits, the light hits, and you're going to be striking quite a bit in there. That was a great shot.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, now we have Teresa here, and her style, as you'll see with a lot of lady bowlers, is a little on the softer speed.
Right.
Kind of a good hand rotation on the side and kind of a medium on revs. It was a very good shot there on the thing, but if we apply the rule of 31 to this pattern, which is a 40-foot house condition pattern, how far out did the ball get out there, Coach?
I think it got to right around 10, I'd say.
Yeah, got it in 10. So do you think she's going to be able to strike a lot at this angle, or is that going to be a one-time thing? Is this the right place where we want to kind of line her up?
I think she might be a little bit too open to the pattern, so her feet are too far left, and she's circling it a little bit more than I'd like to see, even with her softer speed.
So she's hooking the ball. She's trying to cover too much of the board, so if she kind of misses a little bit, she's going to really pay a lot of penalty. We don't want to be so dead accurate right there at the arrows. We want to have about 2 or 3 boards at the arrows to be able to still hit the pocket. So which way would we want to move her?
I'd like to see her kind of close down her angles a little bit, move further right.
So when you say close down your angles, be a little straighter through the front.
A little bit straighter through the front, more direct.
So pull her eyes a little bit to the left, move her feet a little bit to the right. Okay, let's try that. Okay, I like that through the front a little bit more, but it still came up a little bit high, so we want to fine-tune that. Even though she struck on that very first ball, I could see that she would be struggling as the game going. So what do we want to do with her feet, do you think, now?
I would move her feet a little bit left, keep your eyes right around the same spot. So maybe move your feet 1 board left, keep your eyes exactly in the same spot, and I would think that it'll compensate for the amount of hook that you saw in the back end.
Because what we're looking for is the overall shape of the shot, you know, and it does look like the shape's just a little too strong on the back, so we just want to move a little bit left with your feet. And there we go, there we have a really good shot, and that's going to give you more room for air. Get it in a little bit, out a little bit to carry more of your pocket strikes. You're not going to pay the penalty for the little misses. Your style there, I mean, you're a little on the softer side. You have a tendency of the ball wanting to hook a lot, so you're going to see a lot of transitions over a lot of high-speed players. They won't see the lanes change so much, so getting you in a good spot down the lane as far as your break point. And as the lanes change, you just want to kind of start moving your angles in, both your eyes, your feet at the same time.
Great shot.
Thanks.
Okay, Coach, we looked at several different styles and tried to get them lined up. And what we've seen a lot of times on league bowlers, they either trying to hook the ball so much or they're trying to play them too direct on the lane and they're playing the arrows.
Right, and you know, the important thing is to figure out your style of play. If you're a high rev rate, lower rev rate, if you have high ball speed, softer ball speed, all of these things are key factors in how you want to attack that break point.
And what kind of ball you're using is going to weigh into the equation. The key is it's not where you're crossing the arrows. Too many players are worried, where are you playing the arrows? It's where are you playing down the lane? Where is that break point and how are we attacking that break point?
Right, and knowing that break point based on that rule of 31 is key into high scores right away.
Because you can strike from so many different angles and everything, but your room for error is very, very minute. The key to playing that break point, you're going to have the room for that little bit of error and you're going to have more consistent scores.
How many times have you been bowling in league or a tournament, think you've thrown a great shot that it suddenly goes high and you didn't expect it? The most experienced players that are the most successful anticipate these lane changes and are able to move before they actually happen. We're going to use some of the most state-of-the-art equipment available to us to explain how and why lanes change.
Okay, we're now on the International Training Center's research side in front of Earl, which with ball motion study analysis was done. And it helps us get into what we're talking about now is lane patterns. The lane patterns, they put the oil, it's an invisible playing field, but it's constantly changing.
It is constantly changing, and one of the major factors is simply because of the balls are going down the lane, and today's balls, what they're made of, a much duller surface, tend to almost act like a sponge, and they attract more oil, actually soak it up, and the lane will read as if there's much more friction as the balls go down the lane more and more throughout your match.
So what are some adjustments that we can be doing?
Well, a lot of times when the lanes change, it has very much to do with the surface of the ball that the player's using. If they're using a pretty aggressive ball, something that will absorb lots of oil, that will pick up the oil, they're going to dry out much quicker and you'll see much of a change in reaction.
Yeah, a lot of bowlers, the lanes change gradually, but they all of a sudden say, oh the lanes transition. It's because they missed it. It's always constantly changing. We always want to be aware of what our ball is doing. We want to make our adjustments to the break point. Our break point is pretty much going to stay the same place. How we get to that break point is going to be changing.
Very differently, yes, and you can do that with release, you can do that with surface of the bowling ball. There's all sorts of ways that you can change your angle in the way the ball gets to that break point, but we do want to control that spot.
Yeah, so if the shape looks good and it's just the ball starting to come up a little bit high, then we want to make like what we call a diagonal change, a 2-in-1, which will get the ball to the same place at the break point down the pins. It just changes our angles to the front.
Right, it'll accommodate that early hook that you'll see as the lanes change by moving a little bit more into more head oil, which will give the ball a little bit more push, a smoother surface to play on.
And when you're on tournament conditions, when you're usable in these house conditions, sometimes we don't want to do these 2-in-1s because the shape looks really good. We want to do what we call parallel moves then, which are like a 1-in-1 or a 2-in-2, because we just want to change where the ball finishes.
Right, so you're moving, for example, 2-in-2 would be 2 with your feet and 2 with your eyes in either direction.
So you want to kind of look at the shape of the shot. If the shape of the shot looks good, it just ended up in the wrong place, we want to make a parallel move. If it looks like it's too much angle or not enough angle on the back end, then we want to make a diagonal move. And you just want to change where the ball is going to finish.
Right, and oftentimes league bowlers make too many what we call abstract moves, and they're moving their feet only or their target only, and that really will change both the shape and the break point.
And then they end up getting lost and they end up getting split, and then we have 3 or 4 holes in the game, and all of a sudden that 200 or that 190 game ends up being that 160, 150.
Right.